Welcome, everyone, to Buddha's Center. It's lovely to be here with you tonight. Let's begin by setting the most excellent motivation in the universe, the motivation that Arya Nagarjuna says the highest idea is the highest ideal of the Mahayana, and that's bodhicitta. Let's say to ourselves, even if it's contrived or we need a million reasons to come up with a good reason to even say it, but let's say in our minds, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. This will eventually, through the practice of the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment and the equalizing, exchanging self with others practice that are passed down from those in beautiful lineages from Lord Maitreya and Arya Manjushri. We're so fortunate to have them in our world. And eventually, this mind, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, will be spontaneous and will just happen. And it will be how our mind flows. And it will flow in dependence upon the causes that made it flow like that. And we're creating those causes now by studying bodhicitta and also by leaving imprints within our mind that say, this is a mind that I'd like to have. This is an ideal that I'd like to have. I'd like to become a bodhisattva. I want to enter into the Mahayana because I want to achieve the highest enlightenment possible for the sake of all sentient beings. And we see that's how Lord Maitreya and the Abhisama Alamkara defines this beautiful mind that aspires to enlightenment. So let's just take a moment to set our motivation that we're here this evening. This is a Mahayana teaching. And because it's a Mahayana teaching, we should set our motivation that's in line with the kind of teaching that it is. And the motivation of the Mahayana is to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So let's say we're here at this teaching this evening for one purpose, and that's to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, to be able to achieve a specific result for a specific reason. So we recognize that this idea of becoming a Buddha is the only way that we can become the most reliable guide to all sentient beings. And we've figured out that we want to be a helper to all sentient beings when we've meditated on these practices passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya, like the 7-point cause and effect for realizing bodhicitta, and the practices of equalizing, exchanging self with others passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Arya Manjushri and so forth. So we've already convinced ourselves that we would like to be the helper of all sentient beings, the guide of all sentient beings through this process and through this practice. And we've come to realize that the only way that we can truly help everyone, the only way we can really know what we're doing when it comes to being a helper, is to remove all the things that impede us, that keep us from being the best helper in the universe. And that's the process of the Bodhisattva path that allows us to remove those things that impede us from being the best helper in the world. And the only way we enter into the Bodhisattva path is by generating bodhicitta. And the only way we generate it, again, is by creating the causes for it that are concordant with it as a result. And by saying to ourselves and by putting in our mind, this is something that I would like to do, it makes it easier and easier and easier for our mind to accept this idea of wanting this goal, wanting to achieve this enlightened state for the sake of everyone, accepting that this idea makes the most sense out of everything, anything that you've ever heard, and is your only goal, is your only way to achieve exactly what you want and what you want for everyone else in the universe. So we're here tonight to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. And let's imagine that the entire merit field, or however many beings you consider holy beings, you can imagine just suddenly appear in the space in front of you. You can imagine that they're just suddenly there, or you can imagine that they emerge from Buddha Shakyamuni. But just imagine that the holy beings, beings that you consider enlightened beings, beings like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lord Chenrezig, who's here on our earth with us, and beings like my root lama, Namgyo Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, and Geshe Lobsang Gompo Rinpoche, and Geshe Dorje Damdo Rinpoche, and Umzala Geshe Aga Rinpoche, these kind masters, and many, many more who've had such an effect on my mind stream, so that I'm able to, this evening, make some sense to you, hopefully, make some sense out of the Dharma to you. And so when I imagine these beings, it gives me hope. It gives me a sense of I can do this, because I know when they were with me and are with me, they have a confidence in me, and they look into my eyes with a sense of love and respect that I've never had flow towards my direction before. So when I imagine them, it gives me strength. It gives me the idea that I should carry on. I can carry on. I have the tools to carry on. I have the teachers who will guide me in various ways as they manifest in various forms in my life. All manifestations in my eyes of my one root Lama, Namgyal Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, who's just the just from his kindness flows all of these incredible teachings that have had such an impact on my life. So thinking of beings like that allows us to stay connected to beings like that, and allows us to, like when I said, okay, let's generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment, bodhicitta, in a contrived way, and let's like try to leave these imprints in our minds so that in the future there's something concordant with what we're looking to have our mind do. Even if it's contrived, we're shoving it into our mind to make it so that eventually it will be very comfortable. You don't have to do anything. It will just spontaneously arise out of it. So we're doing the merit field for the same reason, so that we leave these imprints within our mind to be able to connect with the results of the teacher, to connect with what these teachers have to teach. And this is the reason why we also imagine the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya and Arya Sangha and Acharya Vasubandhu, etc., down through, Master Salimpa, and Lord Atisha and Master Dron Tompa and so forth, the old Kadampa masters, the Nyingma Sakya Kagyu Galup lineages. And eventually they, through the kindness of our lamas, eventually land in our laps these incredible teachings on grounds and paths. And this is where we find the instruction on the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And because we know this is something that we want so badly to generate within our continuum, and that we must become bodhisattvas in order to become Buddhas, we see that this lineage, it's so important for us to stamp our mind with these teachings and with this lineage and with these things that these beings had to say and will have to say to us in the future. So this is the reason. And then the profound view lineage, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Arya Manjushri and Arya Nagarjuna and Master Buddha Palita and Acharya Arya Deva and Bodhisattva Shantideva, Acharya Chandrakirti, all of these incredible masters, and Acharya Bhava Viveka and Acharya Kamalashila, all these incredible masters, and that then go down through Master Lord Atisha, go down through Lord Atisha and Master Dron Tompa, and then the old Kadampa lineages, Nyingma Sakya Kagyu Galup lineage, and we have all of these incredible masters that then are so kind to pass this down to us. And the profound view lineage that we're speaking of is where we find the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice that's passed down again through Arya Nagarjuna and Bodhisattva Shantideva, is where we find these incredible texts on this equalizing and exchanging self with others practice within the Lojong tradition, and all the Lojong texts that are just so incredible, that can guide us, that'll help us to generate this mind. And if we can learn how to put these practices together, then we'll be able to really understand, how to do it well. And when we look at what the profound view lineage has to offer, we said that the extensive deeds lineage has a lot about grounds and paths and Vinaya and so forth. We find all those teachings in there. But then when we look at what the profound view lineage has to offer, it's not only that it has to offer this equalizing and exchanging self with others practice, but the Madhyamaka Prasangika view, which is the final view of emptiness, is passed down through this lineage from Arya Manjushri to Arya Nagarjuna and so forth. And so when we see that the only way to cut the root of cyclic existence is to realize emptiness, and the only full emptiness, complete understanding of emptiness, where there's a harmony between emptiness and dependent arising, that's presented at its most final way, is the view of the Madhyamaka Prasangika, the middle way consequence school. So this is really important, if that's the case, for us to leave these imprints within our mind to be able to connect with these teachings. So it's not doing this just to try to create a mystical atmosphere. It's doing this for a very specific purpose, a very specific goal that we have, and making sure that the actions that we do have the most potency to be able to align with the goal that we have. And we give ourselves every single chance possible, cognitively and so forth, to kind of saturate our minds with the things that will get us more quickly to our goal. And yes, we're saying for the sake of all sentient beings, but in the meantime, by achieving this goal of Buddhahood, we then no longer ever suffer again. And we have the highest amount of bliss or happiness that's achievable that never goes away. So while we're the superior helper, while we're the most reliable guide in the universe, we're also the happiest one. And we're also the one that never even has the slightest amount of suffering that could occur again. And that Buddhahood is a permanent state that doesn't reverse. And we see that all of the mundane happinesses that we have and all of these things that occur in our lives, they reverse. Even the sufferings we see reverse. And because we've seen them reverse, this is a clue to us that they're not always there and that we can then remove them in some way or shape or form. So it's really important for us to connect with the things in the future that will help us to achieve that goal that we really, really want 24/7, and that's happiness and freedom from suffering. So when we say these names and we try to connect with these different masters in the Nyingma Sakya Kaja Galupa lineages and so forth, and the textbook writers of Drepung, Losaling, and Gomong, and the textbook writers of Sarah J. and May, and Ganden, Shartse, Shanse, when we look at these monastic college textbooks and we see the beautiful, illustrious commentaries these masters have written about Lama Tsongkhapa's works, and that Lama Tsongkhapa has written such illustrious commentaries on the Nalanda Pandit's works. There's 5 incredible texts on emptiness. We see that these are really beings that we want to connect with. We want the result of knowing what they have to say. And we may not hear it all in this life. We may not be able to read everything that we need to read in order to become a Buddha in this life. We may just not have time. Impermanence could take our ideas away very quickly of what we think we can do and will do, because we think we're so permanent. But if we don't have the chance to succeed in our goal of becoming a Buddha in this life, it is possible. We see beings who've done so in the past in one lifetime. You can say this, that in a human body, they told the story of their enlightenment, like Jetsun Milarepa. We could do that, but if we don't do that, then we want to make sure that our path forward isn't flimsy. Our path forward isn't vague. Our path forward isn't kind of right. Our path forward is suddenly we pass away, we are ejected from this body, and we're forced into another set of aggregates that, as it grows up, has the right circumstances around it, this being, as it grows from in the womb into a child that can start to learn. There won't be an acceptance of foolish philosophy, and there'll be a magnet, like a magnet. One will be drawn to non-foolish philosophy. And if we create the kind of imprints that we're talking about right now in our minds, that means that these imprints that we leave in our minds will then connect us to parents and situations where the Dharma will just be present in our life. So we're doing these things for now. We're doing these things for the long run all the way to Buddhahood, but we're always doing everything so that we can continue our path life after life until we succeed in our goal. We don't want to have any kind of break in this kind of journey towards Buddhahood. So we have to do everything that we can within our power to make sure that when we pass away, that our consciousness is thrust, and our subtle wind, the subtle mind and subtle bodies, thrust into a situation that is desirable in terms of what our goals are. And our goals aren't going to change. They will not change. In our next life, we will want happiness and won't want suffering. And in our next life, we'll find people that we love and we won't want them to have suffering. And if we can somehow not break this ideal that we have or that we're trying to have, then we'll be able to continue in this process without a break and succeed in that goal rather quickly. So this is why we imagine the merit field. This is why we imagine all of these holy beings in the space in front of us. It's not just, again, so that when we light incense and think of them, it creates an atmosphere. It does things like allows us to have faith that we too can become enlightened. We know that our teachers have told us that before they were just like us. And we know that they're, if we've had human interactions with these monks who are in training, we know that they were just like us, and some are just like us and are trying their best to evolve. And we see in some circumstances this full evolvement, like Namgyal Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We see this full evolvement, and we know that they're saying, like, when I was younger, I had anger. When I was younger, I thought like this, and because of these teachings, I've been able to evolve. So we have a sense of trust, and then we have a sense of confidence that's built. And then we also are leaving these imprints that I'm talking about and going on and on and on about, because we have to remember that it doesn't really become spiritual practice until we're directing it at the future, not looking at this life. We'll have after results. We'll be happier in this life. We'll have less stress in this life, but this shouldn't be the goal. And if it is the goal, we probably won't have the after effects of less stress in this life and happiness of this life. So it's really about determining what cyclic existence is, what cyclic existence has to offer. And once you realize the answer is not much, other than I can tread my way towards Buddhahood while I'm, projecting it. This is one good thing about it, I suppose. You will want to make sure that you're on that track at all times, and this is how we do it. So then now, because this is a Mahayana teaching, let's imagine that we bring all sentient beings here to be our guest. I'll recite the verse from the King of Prayers, the Samantabhadra dedication, and just imagine that you invite all sentient beings to be your guest. We think of the Lamrim teachings, and we think about what we've been learning, and we begin to bring friends here and those closest to us, those we love. And then we bring strangers in, we see how our mind reacts, and we try to create an unbiased, relaxed attitude towards all of these types of beings, not being too attached to those that we love, not just throwing out someone that's a stranger, and then not being unwilling to care for someone we find distasteful, someone we could consider an enemy, or someone we could consider a difficult person. We see how our mind reacts, and when our mind has a hesitancy to want someone who we dislike to be happy, our mind has a hesitancy to want the person we dislike to not suffer. We know this is our weakness. This is not our strength. This is our mind saying, and because we're paying attention to it, because we're studying and we're meditating and we're looking at the Lam Rim, this is a sign in our mind that there's a weakness that we need to work on. So this is why we use these three types of beings to see if we have an excessive amount of attachment, to see if we could care less about people we don't know about, and to see if our mind is unwilling to care for and want happiness for those we dislike. Because no one with bias has ever become enlightened. No one with this bias has ever become an arhat. So we need to take a peek at that. And if we would like to always be happy and we would like to be free from suffering, then we have to create the causes that are there for it. And this is where we begin, by doing exercises like this to see who we really are, to see how our mind really reacts when no one's looking. the way that our mind is, that we don't want to tell anybody about. And eventually, we'll be able to tell everyone about the way that our mind works. But when we begin with these practices, we don't have any control of our mind. Our mind has control over us. So we're trying our best to try to change our mind and become better. So then after you do this, imagine hell, hungry ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods. Imagine all the beings, the 6 realms of cyclic existence you've brought here to be able to hear these teachings. And now I'll recite this prayer from the Sanche Molang. In the language of the gods, Nagas, and Yaksas, in the language of demons and of humans too, in however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. Laike dan le dan ne jinge drubon da da mi ge nan dan drowa gonji janan ji tsamba tanche ge du da gi ju den do. Now imagine that all sentient beings are here with us, here to hear the Dharma. Imagine that they see the merit field. They see all the Buddhas in the space in front of them, all of these holy beings looking into their eyes with immense love and compassion, looking into your eyes with immense love and compassion. And you feel the blessing that's taking place in your mind because your magnificent potential that you have is transforming. You have this magnificent potential. We all have Buddha nature. We all have this potential to become a Buddha. All of our minds are empty of intrinsic existence. They're not stuck in this place that we think that they are. We think our identity is the best that we can do, and we can become so much better. And we just have to learn how to become so much better. Imagine that all sentient beings recognize this idea that they can become so much better, and that they see in the space in front of them the beings who can teach them exactly how to become so much better. And what a calming feeling that is, feeling of safety, feeling safe and knowing that there's someone in the world that cares so much about me, my teacher, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And all these beings are always around me. I just can't see them because of my karma, because I have a veil. And as I become more and more pure, just like Lama Tsongkhapa did, I'll be able to see these beings around me that are here already and actually see them as beings, not imagine them. And the way I'll be able to do this, and the way that you'll be able to do this, according to the great lamas, is to be doing things like this. So now imagine the space in front of us transforms into Rajagriha, Vulture Peak Mountain, where the second turning of the wheel of Dharma took place, where the Buddha taught the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. He taught the 100,000 verse, the 20,000 verse, 8,000 verse, and the short Heart Sutra, and then again, as we said last week, just the letter Ah, the final negation, which some sharp bodhisattvas could understand everything that was necessary on the path just by hearing one syllable. Some bodhisattvas could understand everything that's necessary on the path, as well as the emptiness of intrinsic existence just by hearing Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisoha. So there were various, like here it says in the language, in however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. Well, the Buddha did this. There were some really sharp beings there where he only had to say ah, and they realized everything. Some he needed to say Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisoha for them to understand, and they understood everything. Some he had to only say the Heart Sutra, very short, and then they understood everything. Some he had to say the 8,000 verse, and then they understood everything. Some he had to say the 20,000 verse, and then they understood everything. Some he had to say the 100,000 verse, and then they understood everything. So we're all different. And these beings who are at the Heart Sutra teaching on Vulture Peak Mountain, we're all different. But the Buddha has this incredible quality where he or she can speak in the language of every being that's there by just saying one thing. And when the Buddha speaks, whatever the meaning that needs to be known by the individual beings is what will be heard, and exactly what they need to hear. So this is a quality of Buddha's speech, his quality of the mind, of being omniscient. and knowing exactly what every single sentient being individually needs. Not as a, everyone doesn't need the same thing. Every sentient being has these kind of individual needs. Some needed really long sutras, some needed very short sutras. And the Buddha didn't want to bore those people who were sharper. So he just gave them exactly what they need. The Buddha never gives us more than we need or less than we need. So the Buddha, by being, because of omniscience and becoming, because of having this perfect caring for others, the Buddha is able to give us a prescription that's exactly for us and only for us. So this is what was going on at Vulture Peak Mountain at Rajagriha. And you'll see this throughout the teachings of Lord Buddha. At the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, you'll see people walk out that just weren't ready to hear, like hundreds just leave because they weren't ready to hear it. And the Buddha knew, like, that don't worry, they're not ready to hear it, they'll just leave. So it's this is what it means to become the reliable guide. It's basically what I'm saying. The greatest helper in the universe, someone who knows what every single being in the universe needs exactly at that moment in order to help them transform. And here the Buddha puts a show on at Vulture Peak Mountain when in this particular context of the Heart Sutra, where he blesses the minds of Shariputra and Lord Chenrezig, of Venerable Shariputra and Lord Chenrezig, and they become puppets, and they basically teach the ultimate truth. They teach the definitive teaching that nothing in the entire universe, not the Buddha, not me, not you, not giraffes, not banjos, not palm trees, not the Caspian Sea, nothing has intrinsic existence. Nothing in the universe. Our mind does not have intrinsic existence. So the Buddha came to tell us this, but the Buddha wanted to make sure that we understood that things do exist and they have a mode of existence that we just don't understand. And they don't have a mode of existence that we think that they have. And when we can find and see a harmony between what the Buddha is saying here about things not lacking intrinsic, about things not having intrinsic existence, and being able to drink out of a cup and it existing, when we can see a harmony between those two things, then we understand what the Buddha is teaching. But if we think that the Buddha is teaching that emptiness means that cup is empty of cup, then we would be saying that the Buddha says nothing exists. And this is not what the Buddha is saying. The Buddha is saying that the self of person and self of phenomena are empty of intrinsic existence, empty of existence by way of its own character, empty of existing right within the object, existing independently. This idea of a way of existence that things seem like they have and I seem like I have, that isn't true. So it's not existence that we're trying to throw out. It's a way of existence that we're trying to throw out. And if we can throw out this way of existence, this idea of a way of existence that's wrong, all of the things that are built on it that land in samsara will be removed. And when you remove all of the foundations for something, what if it's not built on anything, it just collapses. And samsara collapses when we understand the way things really are. When we get rid of the ignorance that sees things in a way that's incorrect, an ignorance that apprehends things in a way that's incorrect. And eventually, when we become a Buddha, we will not only have this, correct mode of apprehension when we're in meditation, but we'll also, while we're just hanging around, not even have things appear to us to have the wrong mode of existence. And the Buddha is the only one anywhere on any planet that has this quality, that he or she doesn't believe things have inherent existence, and they don't appear to him or her to have inherent existence. Whereas we unless we're seeing emptiness, which I haven't had any kind of privilege of doing, unless we're seeing emptiness, we're going to have this problem. Everything's going to always be appearing. And then when we see emptiness, everything's going to be appearing to intrinsically exist. And we're going to, before we see emptiness, definitely ascend, to this perception. We're going to see this appearance and we'll say, this will conceptually believe in it. We'll say that this makes sense. We'll feel there's this concreteness that's there when we say the word flower and assign it to a collection of parts over there. And we will think that this thing we're assigning, this label flower, exists right within the basis of designation, we call it, the kind of collection that we're saying is the thing that's over there. But what we come to find out when we study Madhyamaka philosophy is that the basis of designation and the designated object or the imputed object are contradictory, are mutually exclusive. So this is a long discussion, a lot of years of study that's necessary, but I promise you that I still find it worth it 30 years later to keep studying every day. And I've learned a little bit more and a little bit more. And then when I think I understand something, I learn more and realize I didn't understand it before. And this is how you too will learn. And hopefully you'll learn faster than I have. But the tools are all there and these texts are all there. So let's read the Heart Sutra and then we'll get on with things. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once, the Blessed One was, and again, just imagine that all sentient beings, because you can get the amount of sentient beings that you imagine is the amount of virtue that you can kind of create in relation to this bigger kind of mind. So make sure that everything that you're doing, you're leaving these kind of atomic bomb type of imprints in your mind. Like Guncho Dembe Drome says, let's leave a virtuous imprint every moment in our mind. And imagine if those moments were just the most powerful ones possible. So imagine whenever you're reciting any kind of sutras or reciting things, that you imagine that the beings are in, the highly enlightened beings are in the space in front of you, and that all the beings around you are reciting this along with you, and you're leading them in this recitation. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way. Saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity, no purity. There is no decrease, no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch of dharmas, no eye, dhatu, no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind, consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear, they transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhi Soha. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Thus it is, O son of noble family. Thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. And for all of you sharp folks out there, ah. Hopefully you got it. Kala jebe ne jo damba ne ngaje de je ngai de jen de baba la mai bejenzi ne zongando zo la ja zelo aga zamara ta jandara zamara ya be aga zamara ja jandara zme. Aga samara chashandara samaraya bete yata on gate gate paragate parasangate bodhizoa baba gonche sanji gaye deme doji je laba doji meba doji shewa doji dragi baji medu beje danje je dengoye zo ha gerin joja je je shewa dan medu nu beje dan jewa dan tomba jonjin bon zon zon joji daji de jan den da de le jo. Make an outer mandala offering as a request for the teaching, going request to the teacher myself, but imagining the entire lineage that goes back to Buddha Shakyamuni that's making this teaching possible. I'm merely repeating the things that I heard and slowly discovering the things that I'm repeating, but really know that this is from an unbroken lineage of instruction that goes all the way through the incredible Tibetan masters and the Indian masters, all the way to Buddha Shakyamuni in an unbroken way, in a pure way. So when we're making this mandala offering, think about the entire lineage that we're part of, like our family, by having the teachers that we've had. And when we connect to a lineage and we get these kinds of instructions, they're coming from my teacher, who's got them from his teacher and his teacher, his teachers, 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 teachers. We keep going, and we should land. We should be at Buddha Shakyamuni if we're doing this right. So this is the kind of respect that we're thinking of when we offer a perfect universe with everything as wonderful as we can imagine in it while we make this mandala offering. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. Zaji bedi ji ji me do ra ri ra lin ji ni de yen pa di zan ji jin du mi de yu a di ro gu na da jin la yu wa yu ye zon la ma dam ba ji na ni ji ji ga la jian zi jun zin ji ye da zang bei du ji zin ma la za ji ju ji ja ba ba du lo. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Idam Guru Rana Mandala Kam Niratayami. Sanje Jadan Zaji Janan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Jiji Jibe Zananji Drala Benji Zanje Dubar Jo Zanje Jadan Zaji Janan La Janjo Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Chushe Jibe Zonanji Drola Benji Zanje Dubajo Zanje Jodan Zoji Jonala Janjo Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Chushe Jibe Zonanji Drola Benji Zanje Dubajo. And from such and Konga Nimpo's parting from the four attachments. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Now let's read The Source of All My Good, the text that we've been going over forever. And then we'll look at the section on compassion that we've been looking at in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. It's so beautiful that we have this opportunity to study these authentic texts. We've had authentic teachers who've explained these authentic texts, and it's really, really rare. We sometimes take this really lightly and forget to recognize just how rare the opportunity that we have is. We have this human basis. It's so precious. It's so difficult to achieve. It's so easily lost. We've just have all of this information that we can study that can bring us to a logical conclusion that we should really make use of this basis while we have the time. And we should make use of it in a really wise way, in a way that will allow us to achieve what we're looking for. In the way that we usually go about things in life, we think we're going to get what we're looking for, but we really don't ever get it, because this is samsara. And samsara is something about it called insatiability. We don't get what we want. It's among the 8 types of suffering. We're separated from what we find pleasant, and we meet with unpleasant things. This is just the nature of cyclic existence. And this is what everything that we do that isn't leading to a freedom from it is providing us with. It isn't providing us with true happiness. And we have this basis, this human basis, with a human mind that has so much potential. We aren't animals that are just led by only instincts and can't do anything else and just have to look for food and look for the next thing to do and the next little pleasure and the next little shelter. Animals do that without a problem, but we have a higher intellect, and we can really use this for something that's so special, and that's to get out of the cycle of existence altogether. And not only do that, get out in such a way, do it alongside the abandonment of the self-cherishing attitude as a bodhisattva, and then traverse the final grounds to get to the state of Buddhahood, where there's not only no more cyclic existence, but there's no more imperfection of the mind whatsoever. And this we can do from the place we're sitting right now. We can start the process of making our minds better, more kind, more compassionate, more loving, more wise. But the only way that it's going to occur, unfortunately, there are no shortcuts. We have to go through it in the stages that the Lam Rim teaches. And this is what's was so kind of Lord Atisha to come to Tibet and present these stages of the path in a way that makes sense, that will actually allow us to see, hey, that worked. Hey, that worked. Hey, that worked. And hey, that makes sense. So I'm going to do this. Hey, that makes sense. So I'm going to do this. So it has to make sense to us. And the way that it does is by studying and studying more and hearing more teachings, and then eventually being able to have enough information to analyze, to come to some conclusions yourself. So it becomes your information. It isn't someone else's information. Someone isn't telling you you should think like this. You think you should think like this. And it only comes about through convincing yourself logically, not brainwashing, logically, that this makes sense for me to engage in and devote my entire life to. And if I do this, if I devote my entire life to this, it's the kindest thing that I could ever do for anybody. Anybody that I care about, anybody that I love, anybody who's ever needed something from me. The kindest thing that I can do for them is to devote my life in a real way to this path. The Source of All My Good by Lama Tsongkhapa. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. Bless me first to realize that excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. So this is what I'm talking about, this life of leisure and opportunity that we have now. We have definitely the 8 leisures right now, and we can look at what those are later. And it's ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Why is it so valuable? Because we aren't dogs. We aren't slugs. I'm not a snake. I'm not a crab in the bottom of the ocean. I'm someone who can think and can analyze these things, can hear these teachings, can read these teachings, and then have something to analyze. It's so valuable. Why would that matter? Well, it matters because these things that I can hear and analyze will make it so that I never, ever, ever have to suffer again. And I'll be able to show those how to discover the same thing themselves that I care about. And by then, it will mean everyone in the whole universe without any exception. So grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day, the essence of this life. What's the essence? To use it for something of purpose instead of just getting what a dog gets. I feed them. They get food, and then they want to sleep, and then they want like more comfort, and then they get upset when they're not comfortable enough, and they don't do much more than that, and then they'll die. They'll suffer and die, and they won't know what's happening, and they won't know what to do at the time of death. They won't know how to do anything but be attached. And then we know what happens with craving and grasping, and then we have a thrust out of this body through with a projecting karma. And we have a chance in this human basis to make sure that that time, the time of death, when we're ejected from this body that we think is the only body, but guess what? It's not. When we're ejected from this body, if we've been doing this practice at the time of death, that ejection will go into what we talked about in the beginning, a place where the causes and conditions are there to meet with the Dharma. Parents who are maybe Buddhist or live next to a High Lama. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, there's possibilities are endless, but if you plant the right seeds and you have the right motivation at the time of death, you'll make sure that what I'm talking about to you now and what His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about will be what you're hearing about and what makes sense to you in your next life. My body and the life in it, because my body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, the good or bad imprints I've put in my mind, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs that we do, and try and carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. All those things I talked about that I said we think they're going to make us happy, and then we don't get what we want, or we're separated from what we want. We're separated from pleasant things. And it just keeps happening where we're not satisfied. And these are all in the 8 and 6 types of sufferings, this complete insatiability. They can't be trusted. I can never get enough of them. One of the among the 6 types of suffering is the suffering of insatiability. I can never get enough of it. They can't be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. The suffering of change is the bait that keeps me in cyclic existence. The contaminated happiness that I have, contaminated happy feelings, is bait that keeps me in cyclic existence. It's the door to every pain that I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant me then to strive to be liberated, to achieve nirvana. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing, and make the greatest care to grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teachings. So ethics is the foundation of all the practices. We see the ethics of the, abstention from the 10 non-virtues, the ethics, which is the ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities. And then we see the bodhisattva's ethics, and then eventually the tantric ethics. But we see that the foundation of everything is morality. And so we have to see it's the root of Buddha's teaching. I've slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I'm not well trained in the 3 moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the bodhisattva vows. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the meaning Perfect meaning in the correct way. The union of calm abiding and special insight is what it's talking about there. Grant that once I practice well the path shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then to always keep them, even if it costs my life. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me that then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. So again, it says, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, those beings that I'm thinking of, like in front of me in this merit field, this isn't some unattainable God is over there. No, no, no. When I become them, when I become just like them, exactly like them, different consciousness, not saying my consciousness will merge. I will have my consciousness, but my consciousness will be purified and I will be Vajradhara just like them. I will be a Buddha just like them. It just takes cleaning the consciousness to the point where they clean their consciousness. So this is so important to understand. Please don't ever let me be apart from lamas, because the lamas are who teach me the Dharma. And may I, while I'm being taught this, fulfill every good quality of all of the level and paths, and then reach myself the place where I'm the actual refuge jewel, where I'm the Buddha, where I'm the Sangha jewel, where I have the actual realization of the Dharma jewel, where I'm actual refuge. Take care of me, Lama, until I can be a refuge and I can take care of all sentient beings. Wow. What just in these things, if you start to unpack them, what this is saying, it's saying, I'm going to rely on you until others can rely on me like I rely on you. So profound, these teachings. Wow. All right. So we've been looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, specifically the section that deals with the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, passed down in the extensive deeds lineage from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya and Arya Sangha and so forth, down through Master Salimpa and Lord Atisha, Master Drone Tompa, then through down, trickles down to us through His Holiness the Dalai Lama and masters like my teacher, Namgyo Khyentse Geshe Wondok Rinpoche. So we're discussing in all my lives, may I never live up. I'm sorry, no, I love doing that. So we're discussing, I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. So this idea of becoming a Buddha in order to free all sentient beings. So wanting to achieve this goal for the sake of all sentient beings, to take on the task of freeing them all. I will work as a bodhisattva to free them all, but recognize that I have a handicap even as a bodhisattva, and I must become a Buddha. May I become a Buddha in order to free all of these beings. And we know that the Buddha can't just take away suffering or wash you and give you some sort of purification or give you realizations. We know that the Buddha has to teach the truth of suchness. And this is how beings can become free. So you'll know, as I was saying earlier in the teaching, exactly what needs to be said to help sentient beings discover freedom. Yeah, it's true. It's what they say. So in the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, we went over this very clearly, but it's always good to have a refresher. First, there's a pre-step, equanimity, coming equally willing to be of benefit, equally open-minded in relation to friends, enemies, and neutrals. And this is a part of the pre-steps that establish this kind of basis for developing an attitude. So there's a basis that allows you to then move on to an attitude that's intent on the welfare of all beings. So you're creating this basis that then springs into an intention to be of benefit to others. And you do this through this equanimity practice. And then you engage in the practice of recognizing sentient being as your mother, remembering their kindness and wishing to repay their kindness. And now you've generated this foundation that you see beings as lovable. And that next step that happens is a love through the force of attraction, because you've established this basis that allows you to see this this all these beings in the light of affection. It makes you begin to have this affection for all beings, because you're recognizing this affection and the strengthening of this affection, and a desire to do something about this affection that then transforms into this real development of an attitude that's intent on others' welfare and sees them as so lovable. You have affection for them. It sees them as lovable. And that means that when you love someone, you want them to have happiness and the causes of happiness. And then from that, you see, I love you. I want you to be happy. And then you see, oh, beings have suffering. And you say, may beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. I want to be the cause of that. So you move from this love through the force of attraction to great compassion. And that's where we are in the text right now, where we know that the object of compassion are living beings who have miseries, have suffering in any among the three types of suffering, And where did we learn about that? Lama Tsongkhapa points us so kindly back to the medium scope section. It's almost like Lama Tsongkhapa knows that we're lazy. He knows that you probably didn't do the meditations to get renunciation that are so uncomfortable about yourself and about future sufferings and all of the various aspects once you identify the first noble truth. Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, hey, you're probably lazy. You probably didn't do a very good job. So I'm going to say, don't forget, we understand the 3 sufferings, 8 sufferings, 6 sufferings really, really well. Don't forget, you know that really well. Don't forget, you know that well, because I mentioned the general and specific sufferings earlier on in the text. And we know that you can't get bodhicitta without renunciation. A real compassion doesn't happen without renunciation, because we have to know what the real problem is in order, really, really. And we care so much more about ourselves than anyone in the universe. We have to first really, really taste the problem for ourselves. And then we can say, oh, wow, you've got that problem too. So the object of our compassion is living beings who have these types of suffering. And we can say there's even like the 110 types of suffering that we find in Arya Sanga's Bodhisattva's levels. We have to know what those are. And we've learned about that when we learned it about ourselves in the teaching shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity. When we learn the 3 sufferings specifically in the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity. So always keep this in mind, that Lama Tsongkhapa is reminding us that, hey, you've really got to know all of the subjects in the Lam Rim, because it's a cause and effect relationship. And I know you want to jump to compassion and love, and it sounds a lot better than suffering, but you won't be able to if you don't understand suffering. And the subjective aspect is how nice it would be if living beings were free from suffering. May they be free from suffering. I will cause them to be free from suffering. So this is the idea of what compassion, great compassion is. So we'll pick up where we left off. So we were at that part where it was talking about the 110 types of suffering and becoming familiar with those. And this is, your own suffering that you meditated on and so well. Well, now you're turning towards others and saying they have exactly these same things that I have. So you're looking at them as at these beings, and you're seeing them suffering in all of these different ways, just like you looked at your sufferings and decided you wanted to emerge from them. Now you're starting to see them having them too, and you want them to emerge from them as well. And you want to be the cause for that emergence. You want to be a cause. May I cause this? But it isn't so strong yet that it's this altruism yet. It isn't a fully developed mind yet. And that's what happens in the next step after this. But here it says, furthermore, it is said that the bodhisattva's thoughts of suffering during their cultivation of compassion are far more numerous than Shravaka's thoughts, which perceive suffering with an attitude of disenchantment, the final and actual knowledge of the truth of suffering for Shravakas. So the main thing that the Shravakas, the hearers, are, looking at is suffering. That's their thing. And it's saying, like, don't be fooled that bodhisattvas are just like not doing that. There's a dispelling misconceptions part in this text that says there's an idea that bodhisattvas don't have renunciation, and it's not true. The bodhisattvas see like limitless amounts of suffering going on and want an emergence. It fuels their desire for emergence, which then fuels their understanding of your need to and their ability to possibly help. So if you reflect from limitless viewpoints on how beings lack happiness and have suffering, you develop much love and compassion. Moreover, if you think about this for a long time, your love and compassion will be strong and steady. Therefore, if you are satisfied with just a little personal instruction and neglect to familiarize yourself with the explanations of the classical texts, your compassion and love will be very weak. And weak love and weak compassion isn't full-fledged. It's not great compassion. It's not a great love. It's not what will give rise to altruism. And if you don't have what will give rise to altruism, you won't have what gives rise to bodhicitta, which is this altruism that says, I must take it upon myself, the task of freeing them all. Aha, I can't. I must become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. You won't have that spontaneous occurrence in your mind because you won't have the prerequisites, it's saying, if you don't familiarize yourself totally, thoroughly with these practices. Moreover, after you have thoroughly distinguished the objects of meditation according to previous explanations, so Lama Tsongkhapa is now saying, hey guys, I know that you're really good at philosophy and that you looked this over so thoroughly. But just in case, let me refresh your memory. Do you remember a topic that sounded kind of like how compassion is the root? Do you remember a topic that sounded kind of like how developing the spirit of enlightenment is only entrance into the Mahayana? So we looked at this before, and this enforces in us the idea that we need to get great compassion, because we know that okay, I have to show them I'm not a robot. I'm definitely not. Hold on. Okay. Uh, um, so we have to familiarize ourselves with these fully classical texts. I got distracted by the having to move a puzzle piece over. I apologize. But we have to develop these things fully in order to develop the result that we're looking for of bodhicitta. So anyway, it says the previous explanations of compassion as the root. And we looked at it overarchingly from the perspective of the Madhyamaka Avatara, the Acharya Chandrakirti's supplement to the middle way, or entrance to the middle way. And we're so fortunate to be studying this with Geshe Dorje Damdula. We're on a break right now, but we are studying this currently, the Illuminating the Intent, Umagom Rapsel, which is Lama Tsongkhapa's incredible commentary on Acharya Chandrakirti's Madhyamika Avatara, the supplement to the middle way. And we're so fortunate to be studying that. And we see where he says that compassion is important in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. In the beginning, it's like a seed. Here, let's read it. I'm sure it's right here. Yeah, hold on one second. Compassion alone is regarded as the seed of a conqueror's excellent harvest, as a water for its development, and as the maturation in a state of long enjoyment. Therefore, at the beginning, I praise compassion. So we find Acharya Chandrakirti paying homage to a peculiar thing that's not usually what's paid homage to. It's usually the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or it's usually to Arya Manjushri, or it's usually to the omniscience. But here, it's bowing down to compassion and justifying it by saying it's like the seed that gives rise to bodhicitta, and it's like the water that keeps it going, and it's like the fruit that then allows sentient beings to be nourished in the end. So let's take a peek at what it says about it being important in the beginning. And we find a quote from the teachings of the Aksayamati Sutra. Aksayamati is a bodhisattva who ascends, who comes down from the Samantabhadra's Buddha field, it shows up from Samantabhadra's Buddhist field to talk about the imperishability, imperishables, and inexhaustibility, and the various qualities of the Dharma and the bodhisattvas and so forth. So this you can look up and you can read, I think, in the 84,000. Thank you so much to the 84,000 for doing such hard work. So this is why it's important in the beginning, great compassion. So Lama Tsongkhapa said, hey, you remember it says this, so I'm saying, hey, let's take a peek and see what it says. So this sutra says, furthermore, Venerable Shariputra, the great compassion of the Bodhisattva is inexhaustible. Why? Because it is the prerequisite. Venerable Shariputra, just as the movement of the breath is the prerequisite for the life force of a human being, the great compassion of the Bodhisattva is the prerequisite for correctly reaching the Mahayana. So you can't get to the Mahayana, and you know the entrance is bodhicitta. So it means you can't get bodhicitta without this. You can't enter the Mahayana without this. So here we see how great compassion, which we're seeing as the fifth step in the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, we're seeing how important it is in the beginning. And then it says it's important in the middle. And there's a quote from Acharya Kamalashila's first stages of meditation. Again, we talked about who Acharya Kamalashila was a couple times. Because bodhisattvas are, so this is why it's important in the middle. Like while bodhisattvas are training, after they've become bodhisattvas, why do they still need this great compassion acting? Because bodhisattvas are moved by great compassion. They diligently strive to be helpful to others without considering themselves. Consequently, they engage in accumulating the two collections, so the collection of merit and the collection of wisdom, which is very difficult, tiring, and requires a long period of time. So this great compassion just propels them like a helping machine. Like it isn't even, it's a spontaneous urge, just like a mother looking after her only child who just jumped in front of a train. She wouldn't think, should I help this kid? No, there'd be a spontaneous reaction to help. And this spontaneous reaction to help and to keep going and to bear the hardships and so forth is driven by this great compassion. And then it says it's important in the end. And I loved this quote about why it's important at the end. Since the Bhagavan Buddhas are imbued with great compassion, they remain until the end of the realm in which beings dwell, even though they have attained the complete perfection of their own aims. The sole cause of the non-abiding nirvana of the Bhagavans is great compassion. So you all know that the hearers and solitary realizers are arhats. They're in nirvana, but they're in an abiding nirvana. They just sit there in peace, no more suffering. But the non-abiding nirvana is the nirvana that a Buddha has. And the Buddha doesn't just sit there. The Buddha is just a helping machine that just spontaneously helps. And because he or she is omniscient and cares for everyone, he or she helps everyone and doesn't abide in the extreme of peace that the hearer and solitary realizer, foe destroyer, does. So this is an important aspect to understand. The difference between a Buddha arhat and a hearer and a solitary realizer arhat is the quality of the nirvana. One is an abiding nirvana where they stay, and the Buddhas have a non-abiding, which is the hearer solitary realizer. And the Buddha has a non-abiding nirvana and doesn't stay because he or she can't, because they're sentient beings who are suffering. So it's important to understand this quality of great compassion. We don't say that the hearers and solitary realizers have great compassion, that the individual liberation vehicle, they don't have great compassion. We say that they have immeasurable compassion, but not great compassion, because great compassion gives rise to altruism, which gives rise to bodhicitta. And once that happens, then that pushes you towards a non-abiding nirvana. So I thought that'd be cool to share tonight. And I'll go on about 5 more minutes. We started a couple minutes late, and then I'll end. But I thought that that would be neat to look at that. Why is it important? Why is compassion the root? It's the root because it's important in the beginning, the middle, and the end. Why is bodhicitta the only entrance to the Mahayana? Because bodhisattvas are who practice the Mahayana. You don't become a bodhisattva, as a Bodhisattva Shantideva says in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Once you generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment, as soon as you have aspiring bodhicitta, you're named a child of the Buddha, meaning a bodhisattva. And it's bodhisattvas who traverse the Mahayana path. So it's not until you're in the vehicle that goes to the place that you can say you're on a pathway there, directly there. And the only entrance into that kind of vehicle is this mind that aspires to enlightenment. And then the bodhisattva can cruise, cruise through the Mahayana path to the non-abiding nirvana. So I thought that that was a good detail to share with you. There you go. And then the entrance to the Mahayana point that's made by Lama Tsongkhapa. It says, you must then analyze these explanations with discerning wisdom and elicit the experience produced after sustaining them in meditation. You will not achieve anything with the unclear experiences that come when you make a short, concentrated effort without precisely clarifying the topic with your understanding. Know this is true for other kinds of practice as well. So, wow, it's saying, like, get this right, be clear, be able to articulate exactly what it is that you understand, know it in such a way that you wouldn't be afraid to explain it to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, analyze it in such a way that you discover it for yourself so much that you've actually tasted the food. You haven't seen a picture of the food or heard somebody say it's really good food. You've actually tasted the food. And this is what Lama Tsongkhapa is being so kind to tell us, that you will not achieve anything with the unclear experiences that come from when you make a short, little abbreviated effort. You have to precisely clarify the topic. And that's what we're trying to do week after week after week here by looking at all the Panchen Lama commentaries, all the various Dalai Lama's commentaries, looking at the textbook authors' commentaries, by looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's texts and the root texts, and really honing in on each of these details, even if it takes us a year to get through one, because Lama Tsongkhapa has begged us, as Khenso Geshe Wandak begged us, never to be satisfied with partial instructions, because partial instructions don't produce experience. Wow. And then Kamala Shila's first stages of meditation gives the measure for the development of compassion. And this is really, really, we hear this so often, but we could never hear it enough. When you spontaneously feel compassion, which has the subjective wish to completely eliminate the suffering of all living beings, every single living being without bias, just like a mother's wish to remove her dear child's unhappiness, then your compassion is complete, and therefore it's called great compassion. Here Kamala Shila says that when you spontaneously feel compassion for all beings, commensurate with a mother's compassion for her dear child, dear and small suffering child, then you have completely perfect great compassion. Through this, understand the measure for the development of great love as well. When you care for a being, and like you do a child, you want them to have happiness and all of the causes of happiness. You want to be the cause for their happiness. You want them to be happy. You want to make them be happy. When you spontaneously feel that about the difficult people in your life, that you love them even though they're difficult, and being difficult's not an excuse not to love them, then you've achieved, according to Lama Tsongkhapa, this idea of love through the force of attraction. When you have this idea of not being able to bear that any being in the universe is suffering, even if they're difficult, it doesn't give you an excuse not to have compassion for them. Then when you have this spontaneous feeling that a mother does for their only dear suffering little child, then that point, you know you've got this great compassion. So I need to keep working I have some work to do. But you know what? So what? We have the information to do the work. And what else is there to do but the work? As Master Shanti Deva says in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, if seeing emptiness is the only way to be free, what else is there to do? You want to be free, or do you want to be bound by the ropes of the karma and afflictions and cyclic existence? You want to be carried away, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, in this heavy, heavy river that's dragging you while you're bound and can do nothing about it. And you're blind and everything's dark and you're in an iron net and you're just being thrust from one place to one place to one place. You know, we don't have to have this situation occur in the future if we don't want to. We just have to create the causes for not having it and get rid of the causes for having it. Okay, so that's enough out of me this evening. Thank you so much for your kind listening. I appreciate all of you. I know many of you were students of Namgyal Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, and you knew Geshe Lobsang Gompo Rinpoche, and you knew Demalocha Rinpoche many, and I know you all know His Holiness the Dalai Lama. If you don't know who His Holiness the Dalai Lama is, and you're on an application, I see some folks, please check out who His Holiness is by way of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings. Go on YouTube and see some of his actual talks that he gives, but with translations into various languages. And you'll see the wonder that is His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the amazing message that he has to come present to the world, that he has come to present to the world. Okay, concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. This is a thanksgiving to the teacher and to the entire lineage back to Buddha Shakyamuni for making this teaching possible. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. Zaji beji ji me do dra ri ra lin ji ni de yen ba di zan ji jin du mi de u a yi ro nan da jin la jo ba jo Dagi jine zabe gewa de den dan wa gon la gan ben dan Jeba Jesun Lozan Japa Yi Tembe Nimbo Rindu Zeje Zo Yedangara Ratna Mandala Gamni Rata Yami. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made in this teaching, I don't know of any that I did make, but if I did, may they be purified by the mantra of Vajrasattva, and imagining that we're all receiving blessings in the form of white ohms purifying our body, red ahs purifying our speech, and blue hums purifying our mind. Om benza sato zamaya menabalaya benza sato zena vajita dita meba vazuto kaya meba vazuba kaya meba anurata meba va Sabaziti me braja sabagama suja me gitam jiankuru hum ha bhagavan sabadata kata benza mami moka benza baba mahasamaya saba ahum ve. May we always be protected by Palden Lama, who is Aryatara. Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Dunjo Kala Rajamo Rama Vaja Daja Dunjo Rulong Jo. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samanta Bhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. May the supreme bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase forevermore. And all my lives may I never live apart from my perfect gurus. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond, where I become myself, Lord Vajradhara. In the heavenly realm of Tibet, surrounded by a chain of snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and help for beings, all powerful. Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara's end. Gangri Rawe Gorwe Jin Yan De Vendan De Malu Yongwe Ne Jen Dewan Den Zen Yatso Yi Jabe And now a prayer of supplication to Namgyal Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche that I wrote a few years ago. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om Ah Om Om Ah Om Om Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Lord Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of three capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away, understood this sadness in treating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world, take care of us and all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate your patient listening. I hope you apply these teachings to your life. They really can change your life and all of your lives. It's just a matter of making the decision to apply these practices. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.